Marvel Moon Knight is a long-range projectile duelist character with massive amounts of long-range damage that can quickly spread with the help of his onks. And while everyone can agree that his kit is pretty well designed and fluid, including myself, I do have one problem with it. And my problem is that that kit and that way of playing doesn't really match his comic book persona. In the comic books, he's known for being a fearless vigilante that won't stop until he puts you down. So in this video, I'm gonna propose what would be a rework to his overall kit that can match his personality better while trying to keep some of the abilities that he already has, because after all, I do think that some stuff in his kit has been really well done. But before we begin, if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing, it will mean the world to me, and check out my previous videos. I have a pretty good guide from Mr. Fantastic in case you're new to the character. He's actually pretty good this season. So, without further ado, let's get on to the video, shall we? Alright, before we actually start designing these new moves, we need to establish who Moon Knight is. What is his personality? What does he act like? So, the main idea that I wanted to translate onto his kit is the fact that Moon Knight has kind of a never back down kind of way of approaching things, which I think fits more the bruiser slash assassin playstyle in this game. One of the main reasons that a lot of street level villains like Taskmaster and Bullseye are absolutely terrified of him is because, believe it or not, sometimes he would rather take a hit to the face rather than just blocking it. And that's in the hopes that his opponents will maybe get tired or they'll hurt themselves punching him. He's 100% offense, 0% defense, and that's the reason he scares the living out of everyone. That's one of the reasons a lot of people tend to compare him with Batman, even though I will say there is a lot of differences between the two. It explains why he tends to get lumped in with Batman. And believe it or not, one of the biggest influences that I had while making this new revamped kit was actually the Batman Arkham games, which are a fantastic trilogy of games. If you haven't played them, you're missing out. But let me show you what I came up with. First, I'm going to explain to you his new passive, which right now might not make too much sense, but as we go along, when we build this new kit, you'll see how it synergizes with the rest, which I call Midnight Frenzy. Upon landing the final hit against an opponent, Moon Knight's current cooldowns are all reduced by 1 second. Now, what I mean by final hit, it is a final hit. Having a takedown does not count. Helping towards a kill does not count. He has to be the one taking down the enemy for this to apply. So let's see how this synergizes with the rest of the kit. Now, for his primary fire, this is where you start to kind of see where I'm going with this, because now he is a melee character. His primary combo is now fully melee. The first 2 hits of his combo will be 2 jabs. And after the first 2 hits, for a couple of seconds, you have the ability to land a third hit that is a kick on the opponent by pressing your left click again rapidly after the second hit. And this kick will push the enemy away and will do extra damage if the opponent happens to get thrown into a wall. So this is a little bit of a melee combo, a little bit of a beatdown on the enemy, which I think fits Moon Knight a lot. He's a very up close and personal kind of guy. And while I know he might not be the best hand-to-hand fighter in the Marvel Universe, what matters is his brutality. He will go really far to get the information out of a person, and he'll make sure to scare them to death, basically. They might as well just be scared to death. So I think this fits pretty well. So let's go on to the next ability. So now for his right click, I call it the Crescent Blades. So the Crescent Blades are what currently Moon Knight has for his primary fire, and that is indeed a gadget that he tends to use a lot in the comics as well. That's not something that they just invented, so I still wanted to keep that in some way, but I didn't want to make it too overload on projectiles like he is right now. I don't really think that fits his way of fighting. So the way I decided to make this is that now the right click button will act as a short little dash backwards that shoots 3 little crescent blades as he dashes. So this might not do a lot of damage in long range, but if you're up close to the enemy and you happen to use that and you get a headshot, that'll actually do a pretty good chunk, and you can use it to finish off enemies that are low HP, or you can even try to use it to run away or dodge certain abilities. I think it works pretty well. I can keep the Crescent Blades that way, and I can also incorporate his movement because he also is a pretty good acrobat. He's, he jumps to the rooftops of New York City like most other vigilantes. He's pretty mobile, so I wanted to put that in there to keep that part of the character, and to also keep the blades, because that is pretty much his #1 gadget that he likes to use aside from his grapple. If you need a visual of what that could somehow look like, there is a pretty similar move in the Batman Arkham games where he dashes backwards while using a Batarang. I think that is kind of similar to what I want to do in game. I would maybe make the dash a little bit further, because movement in this game, is a lot. A lot of characters have a lot of movement, and I want Moon Knight to be able to at least somewhat compete with the other characters. Now, let's go to his reworked hook ability, the Moonlight Hook, the F key. That is still a weapon, of his choice that he uses a lot, or a gadget, I should say. So it is one of the ones that I wanted to keep from the start. I knew I was going to keep this in some way, but I revamped it, added some new features, and I made it a lot cooler to use. So let's see how it looks like now. First of all, similarly to Hook, he can now perch onto walls for a small amount of time if he holds the grapple button. So if you hold the grapple onto a wall, and walls only, you can perch onto a wall for a little bit. I find that can give you a pretty good sight of the enemy field. You can try to see who you want to pick off, who's a little bit separated from their team, and from there you can start your beatdown. But that's where the second big feature that I added comes in. Whenever Moon Knight happens to be in the air, his hook has a brand new ability where you can actually hit enemies with it. And the interaction isn't like some boring hook where you just pull the enemy towards you. Moon Knight is the one who pulls himself towards the enemy. As Moon Knight says it himself,
"Camouflage is stupid. I want the enemy to see me and be afraid."
And successfully hitting that hook will lead into a dropkick ability from Moon Knight, where the enemy will be knocked down on the ground for 1 to 2 seconds and they won't be able to move. Now, this ability I think is really cool. You might be asking, well, how are we going to be able to land this when we already need one more hook just to get in the air? Well, that's why I now made it so the Moonlight Hook has 2 charges. You have 1 charge to maybe jump on an enemy, and then 1 to run away, or maybe 1 to get in the air, and then 1 to engage. It kind of depends on how we want to play. I feel like this gives him a lot more of a vibe where he's hunting down for enemies. He gets on that high ground, he looks at the enemy field, see who he wants to pick off, and then jumps in with a big drop kick with his hook. And like I mentioned, obviously the Batman Arkham games are a big influence, and there is a similar ability to that where Batman gets to drop kick somebody off the air whenever he's gliding. Although there isn't a hook involved, I just feel like I wanted to add in that hook to make not only the ability a little bit faster, but also give it a little bit more impact, to make it more satisfying to hit the ability, and you actually have to aim at the character a little bit more. I feel like that adds a pretty good twist to it. Now we're moving on to a brand new ability that I created from zero, and this is the E ability. I call it Never Back Down. Now, when you activate this ability, Moon Knight goes onto a focused state of mind. For the next 4 seconds, he takes 20% reduced damage, and additionally, he will break out of the first CC ability that hits him. Meaning, as long as you time this properly, you can break through Luna Snow Ice, you can break through the Mantis Sleep, you can ignore the Doctor Strange ult stun, and just keep beating up your opponents. I feel like this gives Moon Knight a lot of that relentless kind of vibe that I was talking about before. He kind of just keeps on going. He doesn't care what you're throwing at him. He will just keep going until his opponent is down on the ground. I feel like this represents it really well. It is kind of similar to the Wolverine E passive, except the duration is a little bit shorter, and the damage reduction is also a little bit shorter. I feel like Wolverine kind of deserves to have a bigger reduction since he is just full on a bruiser. I feel like Moon Knight, I want him to be a little bit of a blend between assassin and bruiser. But here on the screen you can see is a clip of how the Wolverine E works. I didn't want to make it super similar, so I added some new features that I think fit Moon Knight pretty well at the same time. Now, I know you're all probably really excited to get onto the ultimate, but before we get there, let me just establish that the double jump ability and the Night Glider is still the same. That ability, I'm keeping it as is. You can still double jump and start gliding around. Whenever you hook onto the air, you can start gliding around as well. The only change I might make is to make the gliding a little bit faster. I feel like the way it is right now, it's a little bit too slow. It kind of looks a little goofy to me. I will make it a little bit faster, give him a little bit more momentum, but that is pretty much it. So now let's move on to the biggest ability, the ultimate ability. Now I call his new ult Tunnel Vision, and this is by far the most ambitious idea that I've had, but I think it fits Marvel Rivals really well. Considering the other ultimates that are in the game right now, I think this is going to fit in just right. So, Moon Knight's new ult is actually now a targeted ability. And what I mean by that is once your ult is fully charged and you get within medium range of an enemy, you will see a little target icon similar to what Loki sees before copying someone's ult that will allow you to call that specific enemy onto a 1v1. Once your victim has been chosen, you will notice that both teams simply will just disappear from the map. The enemy that you picked can no longer see or interact with his team, and you also can't see or interact with your own team, because now Moon Knight has found his victim and he will not stop or look at anything else until his enemy is put down. And now you and this other player are stuck in this state of 1v1 for the next 5 seconds. And if you manage to take down your opponent within those 5 seconds, he actually gets a reset on his ultimate and gets to call for a 1v1 against another player. And this is really where I think the kit comes together really well, because you can kind of just get on the air, pick an enemy with your ult, beat them down. You get a little bit of reduction on your cooldowns. It's not a complete reduction, it's just 1 second on everything that's on cooldown, and you can keep calling the other enemies into 1v1s. And you can kind of just get a rampage going, and one by one by one by one. It's not some AoE ability where you just kind of one-shot everything in front of you. You kind of just have to take it slow. You have to hit your combos. Every single fight is a 1v1, so you could lose at any second. Your opponent can get healed, you can't get healed. It is basically up to you and your skills. And one last note, just not to make this ability super omega broken, CC immune opponents cannot be hit by this. So if you happen to hit a Thing, or maybe an Emma Frost on a Diamond form, or a ulting Luna Snow, you cannot ult them. Your ult will instead be reset back to 50%, because otherwise I think it'd be a little bit too OP. The second, a Luna Snow ults, you can just take her out and your team can just kind of handle everything else. I feel like that would be a little bit too strong. It's also why I kept it at medium range only, so he can't just, yoink somebody from halfway across the map. I feel like that would be a little bit too strong. He kind of has to get in there first, get in range, and then ult. I didn't want it to be, just a guaranteed kill every time. I want it to be a little bit more fair, a little bit more counterable at least. And with that, we are done with my remake. That is my new take on Moon Knight. Now, just a reminder that I don't actually dislike the kit that the devs made him originally. I think they did a great job, actually. It is incredibly fluid, super satisfying to play. My only problem, like I said, just I don't think that it really matches the Moon Knight persona that I know from the comics that I really enjoy reading. I really am passionate about the character, and I just felt like he had so much more potential to be the melee bruiser that he could be. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed making it. I had tons of fun. Let me know down in the comments what you thought about it. Maybe you think one of the abilities are too broken. Maybe they're too OP. Maybe you think it's too weak. Maybe you have an idea of a character that's not even in the game yet and you want me to make a kit for them. Or maybe your favorite character as well, just like Moon Knight doesn't quite play the way you wanted them to. But this is the end of the video. If you're not yet subscribed, please consider subscribing. You're basically letting me know that you want more of this content, that you support me, and that means everything to me. Drop that like button and hit the notification, so that way on my newest videos you'll be here first. So that's it for me. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you on the next one.